Hai, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Siti Aisyah binti Aziz. My title project is an assessment on the demand for auction property in Negeri Sembilan. My supervisor name is Surveyor Nur Halil Ismail and my panel is Ahmad Sharin Sain. The current growth economy is causing property price land soar and affected the purchase of real estate, especially for some low-income individuals. It is very difficult for them to own property. In addition, rising cost of living and economic instability have resulted in individuals being able to own property but failing to pay off loan debts, which ultimately resulted in their properties being auctioned off. This scenario is becoming more serious, especially in major urban areas throughout Malaysia. Auction is one of the best options and has become the dominant mechanism in selling and buying property. However, there is a bad perception of public toward auction property in Malaysia, which is selling and buying property by auction is complicated and risky. According to Wong 2014's biased negative perception of auction property as dilapidated and poor quality causes the stigma effect. According to Chan 2008 studies, based on their findings, property auctions are more difficult to sell than sell in the primary and secondary property market. As a result, public members are less likely to participate in auction. This will give impact to auction market trend. Therefore, it requires me to examine in-depth overview on the demand of auction property in Negeri Sembilan. My first objective is to determine the preferable location of auction housing property in Negeri Sembilan. Second objective is to study the factors that respondents consider while purchasing the auction housing property in Negeri Sembilan. And the last objective is to study the respondent acceptance and perception of auction housing property in Negeri Sembilan. Before we proceed in depth, what is property auction? Auction is a public sale in which things are sold to the person who offers the most money for them. Auction is an activity where sellers offer assets that they want to sell and then the demand will be met by buyers who offer price according to their own willingness. In Malaysia, we have two types of auction, which is public auction that are usually initiated by the bank to sell the foreclosure or distressed property if the borrower failed to pay their housing loan, and private auction, that is an auction in which property owner voluntarily to sell their property. Also, auction is a market sale usually conducted by professional auctioneers and governed by strict rules that vary in each state and territory. When purchasing the property, especially for auction property, there are several considerations such as type of house, location, neighborhood, price, and investment prospect. Here are the advantages and disadvantages in buying and selling auction housing property. For this study, a single research approach has been used. It involves the quantitative data only. Likert scale can be applied to develop the questionnaire. The questionnaire consists of closed-ended questions. The collected statistical coding from the questionnaire has been analyzed by using SPSS software. The software shall project a visual aids to represent the analysis data. From this software, frequency analysis were generated. For sampling method, simple random sampling method has been used. This research adapted sample random sampling because based on the characteristics that be needed by the researcher and on the specified criteria. This is because simple random sampling is a process where individuals have an equal and independent chance of being selected for a sample. These questions were distributed by sharing the link of Google Form, mostly via WhatsApp, Facebook, and other social media. In this study, secondary data were collected by the form of the literature review from various researchers regarding auction property. There are various means being used to obtain the relevant information, which is from book, article, journal, website, and other sources. In section A, there are respondent demographic and 100 respondents will answer the questionnaire. As we can see here are the chart, it shows the respondent background about auction property. First question was about their property ownership status. 65% will already have their own house, whereas remaining 35% are not having their own house. 49% of respondents in this question were experienced and knowledgeable in buying auction property, and remaining 51% were not. The figure above shows my first objective, which is to determine the preferable location of auction housing property in Negeri Sembilan. The analysis of the result revealed that Sembilan district as their first preference, followed by Port Dickson and Rembau district. Based on my knowledge of the area was chosen based on their familiarity with the area, their reason for buying, whether for own, to stay or rent, the current market puller in the area, for example, MRT or LRT near the location, and the price of the property offered during the auction. These factors have the greatest influence on their preferred location. This is my second objective, which is to study the factors that respondents consider while purchasing the auction housing properties in Negeri Sembilan. The analysis of the result revealed that practically most of the respondents also agree that price and location are among the important factors, and it needs to be emphasized that it influences the change of respondent purchasing power. The objective for this study has been achieved by knowing the consideration while purchasing auction housing property can help researchers have in-depth knowledge on the demand auction property in Negeri Sembilan. My last objective is to study the respondent acceptance and perception of auction housing properties in Negeri Sembilan. The analysis of the result of this question revealed that practically all of the respondents were agreed auction property can be an opportunity to society for owning property, and auction property can be the right investment prospect for future. Then, this table shows the total number of 10 questions that have been distributed of Objective 3, which is to study the respondent acceptance and perception of auction housing properties in Negeri Sembilan has been achieved. There are 31 items of questionnaire are created and distributed to 100 respondents were involved in this research in order to analyze for the aims of this research. All the data and information obtained for the purpose of this study was presented and displayed in tables and figures. The data obtained by the researcher from primary and secondary sources clearly show that the demand for auction property in Negeri Sembilan still at a modest stage, where public acceptance and perception of auction property has not received positive response from the questionnaire. In conclusion, all three objectives has been achieved based on the data and finding that has been conducted. For recommendation based on this research, the researcher have a few suggestions. So, the researcher need to conduct deep research and reveal more details the features that affect the decision of buyers in purchasing auction property, which is the availability of online system software. I am sure this will encourage an increase in the number of bidders who will participate in public auction session and be able to increase the chance of the public owning fixed real estate at real value without manipulating prices.